Enough time has passed since the release of K-pop Demon Hunters. We're in a new year, so we can be honest with ourselves about the so many mistakes that were littered all over the movie. I know a lot of you might not have noticed these mistakes, which is why in this video, I'm going to be going through a lot of them. From Rumi showing her body to the world, to a mistake that involves Huntrix attacking a little girl, down to them having a picture of the Saja boys in their demon form. There's even a crazy mistake that I had to save for last. So, like and subscribe, let's dive in. Let's start the private jet scene. You'd expect that since it is the beginning of the movie, they will keep things tight and not make any mistakes, but that's not the case. This is probably the very first mistake in the entire movie, and it happened when Bobby called Rumi to ask them why they hadn't arrived at the arena for the show yet. On Rumi's screen, we see Bobby's call counting before we are even able to pick up the call. I'm not kidding, that call counted to 3 seconds before it was even answered. I mean, we all use phones. Do calls count before we answer them? And you'd think that was the only mistake that our dear Bobby was involved in. But this one is even more obvious and even more annoying. It happened when Bobby came to the girl's apartment after finding out that they had dropped Golden. When he stepped in, he looked like a man who was holidaying in Hawaii and had to cancel his holiday on short notice. He had a bathrobe over a white t-shirt with the Huntrix logo on it. And to top it all off, he wore a very flashy pair of pink glasses. I was really excited to see what the full Huntrix logo on that t-shirt looked like. But when Bobby threw off the bathrobe, the logo on the t-shirt disappeared. No, I don't mean that we saw him change shirts. All we saw was Bobby throwing off the bathrobe, and somehow the logo that was printed on a t-shirt disappeared as well. And it only gets worse from there, because tell me why the filmmakers honestly thought that we wouldn't notice this mistake. I mean, I kind of understand why they thought we wouldn't notice, because it involved one of the hottest characters in the entire movie. I'm talking about our devilishly handsome Jinu. The mistake happened in the scene where the Saja boys and Huntrix ran into each other for the first time. We saw Jinu in all his glory, in all his charisma and shine, all of which was natural. There was no jewelry of any kind on him, especially not on his neck. So why about half a minute later, when we saw Jinu performing Soda Pop with the rest of the Saja boys, did he now have a shiny chain on his neck? Where did it come from, eh? The mistakes just keep piling up like Huntrix's meal tables. Ah yes, their tables are the subject of one of the biggest mistakes in the entire movie. Well, one table in particular. I'm sure we all remember the table on the plane, the one that had enough food to feed a village on it. Yeah, that table. This particular mistake is so funny because it came immediately after another mistake. After Bobby's call, the girls realized that they had been kidnapped by demons, and they approached the demons. If you look behind the girls, from the moment they got up to confront the demons, the table was no longer there. It had disappeared completely. The table and all the food on it just disappeared. But another table appeared later when Rumi wanted to keep their cups of ramyeon to cook. And it wasn't just the table. Almost all the chairs disappeared in that plane fight scene. And yet, that's not all the mistakes that happened in that plane scene. It's almost like the mistakes were on a winning streak on that plane, because the 5th mistake also took place on the plane. Just after the girls got up to confront the demons, Rumi, being the show-off that she was, didn't even bother fighting her way through to the cockpit. Instead, she called them all out. And I won't lie, that gained her aura points with me. My point is, it was a demon that was flying the plane. But we all know that isn't possible because demons don't know how the human world works. Just before Rumi called all the demons out, we had a chance to see the foolishness of demons. One was watering a plant with hot coffee. The other one couldn't figure out how to wear a seatbelt. And yet somehow we're supposed to believe that one of them was flying a plane. Heck no. Anyways, moving on from the plane scene, let's shift to a mistake the animators made on Rumi. This mistake in particular happened when Rumi lost her voice while rehearsing for their first live performance of Golden. She ran into a restroom and unzipped her shirt. Now, before she unzipped that shirt, we saw the zip pendant. It was a beautiful gold star. But after she unzipped the shirt, the pendant disappeared into thin air. But that wasn't the end of the zip pendant's tale, because when Rumi ran out of the restroom, the pendant had appeared again. Let's take a quick look at that plane scene one more time, and you'll see that demons ripped off one of the plane's wings, like detached it from the plane completely. But then, seconds later, when the girls were looking down from the trashed plane, there were 2 complete wings, as though we didn't see one just get torn off. How are the wings still intact? Huh? At number 8, there is a mistake that is funny and silly at the same time. It happened during the performance of Soda Pop. The girls were watching with the rest of the crowd when the Saja boys started kissing solid hearts and throwing them at people. One of these hearts almost hit Rumi, but Mira caught it. Unfortunately, Zoe didn't have the cat-like reflexes of her teammate, so the heart hit her like a brick. She falls to the ground, and we see her hat visibly fall off her head. But when she got back up, somehow the hat was already back on her head like it never left, like it didn't just fall off. Funny enough, this isn't the only time Zoe's hat did something funny and wrong in the movie. I'll tell you about the next mistake that the hat made later in this video. Up next is one of the best hidden mistakes in the entire movie. I always say that one of the best ways to hide something is in plain sight, and that is exactly how they hid the mistake in this scene. It's the scene where the girls were trying to write a new song. I say trying because they were failing horribly at it. In that scene, we saw a lot of pictures on the wall. And if you look towards the right, there is a picture of the Saja boys in their demon form, wearing their traditional hanbok. But the only times the Saja boys were in their demon form, wearing a hanbok, were when Jinu first pitched the idea for a demon boy band to Guima, and when they performed Your Idol towards the end of the movie. The girls had never seen them like that, so it is actually impossible for them to have that picture. But I know none of you even saw that picture. You should commend my sharp eyesight. Anyways, no more gloating. Moving on. This mistake centers on Mira, who seems to have suddenly developed the ability to pass through objects. I know that what I said sounds like something a comedian would say, but I assure you, I am not joking. In the scene where the girls decided that they would create the greatest diss track ever made, we saw all of them running out of the living room like troops that had been given a target. Everyone was able to leave without disturbing the laws of physics, but Mira, she couldn't just let it be. She had to do something, or at least her leg. I'm serious, if you go back to that scene and slow it down, you will see that Mira's leg phases through the cushion. It's almost like she suddenly developed powers. Anyways, at number 11, I have a mistake that is so not normal that it makes me want to line up the animators of that movie and give them an whooping. In that sequence of the girls going out to hunt demons, there was this particular shot where the 3 Ajumas were out for a jog, and we saw demons try to attack them, but Rumi jumped in and killed the demons. In that shot, Rumi was wearing a kind of short-sleeve crop top that has a wide neck. My question is this: why would she wear something that will show her skin when she is going hunting with her teammates? But then I looked closer at her arm, her shoulders, and even her stomach that showed in that scene, and there were no demon marks. That doesn't add up, does it? And what makes that scene particularly annoying is that in an earlier flashback, we saw Rumi wearing that same top, and she hid from her friend because she didn't want them to see her demon marks. And believe me, we could see the marks while she was wearing the top in that flashback. So why couldn't we see it when she wore that same shirt to hunt demons? And why did she even wear the shirt to hunt demons when she was hiding from her friends earlier while wearing it? Too many unanswered questions, so I'm going to leave this now. And I'll dive straight into another mistake that involves, guess who? Rumi again, of course. She is utterly and completely the main character of the movie. This mistake involves her and Jinu actually in the bathhouse scene. I'm sure we all remember how she pursued him like she wanted to devour him the first chance she got. Genie seemed to be playing hard to get because he kept running away from her, but when he saw that Rumi was actually gunning for his life, he had to step up his game and get serious. He ripped off her shirt sleeve with his demon claws, and in response, Rumi pinned him down and almost took his head off. And in that shot, the tear on Rumi's sleeve wasn't there anymore, like it just disappeared. But seconds later, the tear returned. Yeah, you heard me. A tear disappeared and reappeared. Crazy stuff. Speaking of disappearing and reappearing, at the beginning of the movie in the plane scene, I know what you're thinking. How many mistakes does this plane scene have, for Christ's sake? Well, clearly a lot. In this mistake, we see Remy, Mira, and Zoe eating a buttload of food. The first food they target, though, is the Kpop. There was an entire tray of it, and these girls finished it faster than I could say, Mamma Mia. Remy even swallowed an entire long row of Kpop. We clearly saw the tray of Kpop get completely empty. But a few seconds later, when the girls were about to eat their ramyeon, we saw that same tray again, and it was filled with Kpop all over again. I mean, we definitely did not see any demon replacing the tray of Kpop. So it is clear the animators just forgot that the girls had eaten the Kpop already. Well, brace yourself, because the next mistake was clearly not something the animators forgot about. In fact, there's no explanation for that. The mistake I am talking about is none other than the one that happened during the Saja boys' performance of Soda Pop in the market square. We saw the boys dancing their hearts out like their souls depended on it, and when the performance was nearing its end, we saw the Saja boys' legs going all wiggly in the air. Like their legs became as soft as tissue and dangled in the air while they danced. It was a very funny thing to catch, and believe me, it is even funnier when you slow the scene down. I don't know how anyone will watch that scene slow down without laughing. Funny, right? Well, number 15 is nowhere near funny. It just made the writers look incompetent, like they don't even understand the entire workings of the movie. If you're curious about what I am talking about, just keep watching. Do you remember that scene in which the girls were rehearsing for the Idol Awards? Rumi still wasn't feeling the song. She thought it felt off, and she expressed her problem with the song. But Mira told her that even if they wanted to change the song, it was too late to do so because the Idol Awards were tomorrow. And mind you, this rehearsal was happening early in the morning. Later that day, they had the battle on the train. Then Rumi met up with Jinu that night, and we can all remember that Jinu told Rumi he'll make sure the Saja boys lose tomorrow. The much-awaited tomorrow finally came. In the morning, Rumi was talking to the girls in the living room. She tells them that she doesn't think Takedown is the right song, and that she knows that if they use the right song, they can win tomorrow. What do you mean tomorrow? You're already in the new day. She was supposed to say tonight. Moving on to number 16. This particular mistake is what I call one of the most daring mistakes in the entire movie. It happened in like the blink of an eye. So if you so much as blink, believe me, you have missed it entirely. It was in the scene where the winners of the Idol Awards were being announced. We saw something that if the characters in the movie had seen, they might have found out that the Saja boys aren't humans. While the winners were being announced, we saw a glitch before the broadcast shifted to the Saja boys, who appeared to invite everyone to their free performance. And in the split second between the announcement of the Idol Award winners and the Saja boys, we see a glitch of the Saja boys in their demon form. All I could think at that point was, wow, how bold of you crazies. Very bold indeed. But that doesn't leave mean, because at number 17, I have something that will just leave you scratching your head, like completely. So the first time Rumi and Jinu bumped into each other, we saw Rumi's box of tonic pouches come crashing down to the floor. They were scattered all over, and the girls had to pick them up and put them back into the box. I don't know about you, but I counted as they picked up the tonic pouches and put them back into the boxes. I'm sure a lot of you already know what I am driving at, which is the scene where Rumi saw Jinu drinking one of her tonic pouches and then counted her tonic pouches to confirm if Jinu really stole from her. She counted just 6 pouches in that box and concluded that Jinu stole that pouch from her. But even if we add the stolen pouch, it still doesn't amount to 13. Are the filmmakers all bad at math? I mean, surely it doesn't take an Einstein to add small numbers. Okay, maybe I'm being too harsh on the filmmakers. I really have to calm down. So I promise to be gentler as we talk about number 18, which of course is about Rumi Dearest. The scene where this mistake takes place is when the girls were dressing up for their first live performance of Golden. Rumi had her own personal dressing room. That girl receives preferential treatment in every single thing she does. Anyways, we saw her getting dressed. She zipped up her shirt, then put on her jacket. We didn't see Rumi put anything else on. But then we suddenly see a black X-strap under her jacket. We didn't see her put it on. It just came out of thin air. But that is not the only flawed logic in the movie. And I personally think that one of the most flawed logic in the entire movie was in just one shot. It was that shot on the airplane where the girls were looking from the torn plane with their cups of ramyeon in hand. When I watched that scene, I was speechless. The plane had been divided in two. One of the wings had been torn off, and yet the plane was still flying so smoothly in the air. Not even Tom and Jerry would defy logic in such a manner. It wasn't that the plane was in the air for a few seconds before falling. It wasn't even falling at all. And if it was flying as the movie claimed that it was, then the force would have thrown the girls out of the plane. But instead, they did a cool dive in their own time. And they just kept spitting in the face of gravity from there, because as they were diving through the air, we saw Mira combing her hair and using a hairdryer at the same time. If you've ever ridden a motorcycle with your hair in the wind or stuck your head out of the window of a moving car, you would know it is impossible to comb your hair mid-air, let alone use a hairdryer. That's like trying to use a toy water gun while underwater. Let's take a trip to the scene where the Saja boys were performing Soda Pop. What is arguably the most embarrassing mistake in the entire movie hit me like a brick. The Saja boys suddenly became Santa, giving out good gifts and doing good deeds. But while they were giving out gifts to a bunch of little boys, we saw one of the most humiliating things in the entire movie, Abby's butt. I'm not kidding, although you're going to have to slow the scene down to be able to catch it. It moves too quickly for the naked eye. Still on the Soda Pop performance scene, we saw Jinu help a teenage girl apply mustard on her corn dog. A sweet gesture, right? Oh no, the girls basically stole the corn dog from the poor girl's hand and began stomping it. Firstly, if this was real life, that girl would have sued them, and a video of them harassing her would have been online. But that is not even the mistake. Just take a look at the corn dog, which should have turned to a pile of trash by now. But no, instead of breaking, the corn dog was bouncing like a rubber toy. Food isn't supposed to do that, right? Speaking of food, another silly mistake that happened in the movie involved food. It happened during that hot sauce competition that the Saja boys had on live television. All the Saja boys lost, except baby Saja. He was the one that won, and when he won, the person he was competing against basically fainted. The man had red sauce all over his cheeks and mouth. His eyes were red, and his skin was just as red. But a few seconds later, his face was suddenly clean, like he had taken a bathroom break to wash off all the sauce on his face and mouth. His eyes and skin were back to their normal colors, as though he didn't almost explode a few seconds ago. Anyways, moving on to the second to last mistake on my list, we have the girls floating in the air at the end of the movie. You might ask, Karim, how is that a mistake? Well, first of all, you can't just throw that on us. We know that the girls do not have the power of flight, so how did they suddenly start flying in that scene? Then there's the problem that all the fans found it normal and even cheered. I mean, you can't tell me it's every day you see people flying without any rocket or wire attached to them. But hey, it is what it is. Ah, the finale. As promised, it is something that is completely out of the bucket. So, remember that scene where Huntrix met the Saja boys for the first time? When Zoe saw Abby's abs, she basically turned into an active volcano. Her hat blew off her head, and popcorn began gushing out of her eyes. The problem with that scene is that we immediately see Zoe and Mira eating all the popcorn out of her hat. They were using Zoe's hat as a popcorn bucket, the same hat that was blown off seconds ago. She didn't need to pick it up, it just automatically became her popcorn bucket. Anyways, that's all for today. Leave your thoughts in the comments and I'll see you next time. Bye.